Hello, I'm your host Jim McClean. Welcome back to another episode of the BanterFlix movie review show here on NvTv. Let's see what movies we'll be talking about tonight. We'll be reviewing The Phantom Menace, which is back in cinemas to celebrate Star Wars Day. This week, our pick of the streams is Wish, which is available now on Disney+. And our Shakespeare On-Screen concludes with Cinepunked Robert J E Simpson's choice, Orson Welles' adaptation of Macbeth. So that's what we've lined up for you tonight on a packed show. Joining me in the studio this evening is Maria McQuillan.
Hi, Jim.
And Danny Brown.
Hello there.
Looking fab, Danny.
Thanks.
Looking fab. And you're on point. We've given you a week to get ready for Star Wars Day. So we have loads of things we want to talk about. Maria, I'm disappointed. You know, I did think you were going to dress up in Star Wars attire, but, you know, nobody's perfect. I left my Chewbacca costume at home. You know, it's a warm studio where nobody wants to see that on NvTv in the evening. So look, without any further ado, let's move on and chat about some movie news.
Boys are so silly.
This is what I'm talking about. Big slow motion action sequence. Who knows if you live or die? Let's go!
So that's a look at Deadpool and Wolverine. We had a teaser a couple of weeks ago. Feels like no time now. We've got a second trailer for this. Marvel are very much ramping up the excitement. A lot of effing and jeffing, if I say so myself, in that trailer. Not sure how much NvTv can show, but Danny, I'll come to you first. You excited for this? Are you looking forward to Deadpool and Wolverine? Or are you a bit like me, still suffering a bit from comic book movie fatigue?
Yeah, no, I was very much in the comic book fatigue part. You know, even with the TV shows and stuff, I still watch them because it's just, you have to.
We have to.
But like the Deadpool Wolverine trailer has me really excited. You know, I think it's got all the right references. It's bringing back a load of the old X-Men from the movies. It's got little niche references for the fans and stuff in there, even in that most recent trailer. I think it's bringing so much of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I don't mean just the MCU, and you know, you've got all the Fox stuff and that in there. I think this is potentially what could bring a bit of life back to the MCU. So yeah, I'm pretty pumped for it. And I think again, Ryan Reynolds being allowed to kind of not necessarily do what he wants with it, but you know, it's clear he's having a lot of fun, and to have Hugh Jackman back as well is an absolute win.
Yes, Hugh Jackman's return is definitely got me pumped for this. More so than I thought I would. I was not a huge fan of the first two Deadpool movies. If I'm honest, you know, I have a bit of a man crush for Ryan Reynolds, but I think I said on our socials, you know, everyone's talking about Deadpool Wolverine. The Ryan Reynolds movie I'm most excited about is John Krasinski's If, because that just looks like it could be a live action version of Inside Out. I don't know, that film will probably disappoint me more than Deadpool Wolverine. Maria, what about you? You still with a bit of the comic book fatigue, or has this got you excited for the prospect of maybe returning and then sitting down in the cinema with your popcorn and enjoying an MCU movie?
I think like this is the only one that'll kind of get me to go back, because the last couple MCU films I watched, I was like, I'm so bored, I'm so done. But I've always really enjoyed the Deadpool films, so for me this is the one where they're going to bring me back. And yeah, like it's kind of funny how Hugh Jackman had said he wasn't going to play Wolverine again, and like 4 years later now, he is in fact playing Wolverine again. So it must be a pretty good script for him to come back.
I can complain till the cows come home about how I'm suffering from comic book fatigue, but Marvel's got my money. I'm still going to go see the film, maybe not on opening night, but I'm excited about Deadpool and Wolverine, if I'm honest. But I think we'll move on and talk about something that's back in cinemas. So that's a look at Phantom Menace. It's back in cinemas to celebrate Star Wars Day, and I feel there's an obvious person to go to first as we discuss this film celebrating its 25th anniversary. So Maria, what's your thoughts? Were you a fan of the Phantom Menace? Is this going to feel kind of really old? So I remember when this was out, I was about 15, 16 when this hit cinemas, right at the kind of peak. I think if I vaguely remember, Empire magazine voted the trailer for the Phantom Menace the greatest trailer of all time. Episode 1, in a weird way, George Lucas taking us back to where it all began. Now, 25 years later, it's back in cinemas, although we kind of forget it was re-released in 3D, but nobody talks about that. So, are you a fan of this film? Are you a Star Wars fan? Are you glad to be getting the chance to see Phantom Menace back on the big screen again?
Yeah, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so I was actually really, really excited to watch this one because my first experience watching it was on ITV. So probably not the most ideal because it's then 3.5 hours long, intercut with various adverts, But I think I didn't have the best memory of it. So whenever I watched it again for this episode, I actually was like, God, this is a really fun film. And as I was watching it with my partner, we were like looking up stuff about the film, and he was like, there's a quote by George Lucas when people were complaining about this movie, and he was like, it was made for 12-year-olds. I want you to remember that, or something along that lines. And we were like, yeah, this is a film for 12-year-olds. This is a popcorn movie. It's good fun. There's a lot of like really cool visuals in it that I'd kind of like forgotten. And there's so many moments that are spectacular memes that every time, again, like anytime a meme moment happened, we'd be like, yes!
Well, for 25 years, Maria, I have been quoting to anyone who'll listen, there's always a bigger fish, So we have Liam Neeson, we have a Jedi Master from Ballymena, so that's always great with Qui-Gon. And yeah, I remember watching this, and I guess Phantom Menace had this impossible job at the time, because we had a generation that grew up with Star Wars, then passed that love on to their family members, children, etc. And then Phantom Menace came out in '99, and I think it was just a case that it was just all right. I think everyone thought it was just going to be the greatest thing ever. I just think Phantom Menace is fine. It is a little bit long, but there is some moments, you touched on this, Maria, there's some moments I think are just stupendous in terms of what Lucas was trying to do, the pod racing sequence. We have that iconic, lightsaber battle between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, which is just great. A little bit OTT. I mean, they've definitely done a lot of cardio and for prep for that. It is a bit very choreographed. And John Williams' Duel of Fates is just stupendous. I mean, great that they reuse that again later in the series with the more recent trilogy. I thought it was fine. I do think it's baggy. There is Jar Jar Binks. There is Jake Lloyd. I mean, I wasn't a fan of him when Arnie was looking for that toy and Jingle All the Way. I certainly wasn't a fan of him as Anakin Skywalker. But that poster that they used early on with a young Jake Lloyd and then the shadow of Darth Vader, again, simple, fantastic. It's just, at times, it is a little bit wooden. Some of the performances are wooden, but hey, who am I? Danny. Jedi Knight. We got you literally texted me and said, shall I get in costume for this? And I didn't even think, if I'd said no, I think you would have still came this evening here in costume. So I'm going to imagine you're a fan of the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, absolutely. I was 7 years old when this film came out. I'd been introduced to the original trilogy by an uncle of mine. And then when Phantom Menace was releasing, that was it. He was getting excited. So in turn, I was getting excited. There was all the big build-up, as you say. And then when it came out, I was a kid, so I loved it. And I think as you grow up into it, you have that kind of like teenage phase, and I'm going to uni to study film, so now I'm going to critique the life out of it. But now I've come to a stage where I really appreciate the stuff that this film does well. And I will acknowledge there is all the stuff that's ropey about it, but there's so much I think to love about it. And I think as well, like you said, Attack of the Clones is the weakest of the three. But yeah, like this film, Liam Neeson, Ballymena Jedi Master, Danny Brown, Ballerina Jedi Master. Yeah, whenever I found out that this was how I found out Liam Neeson was from Ballymena as well, because of my uncle being like, he's from Ballymena, and I was like, no way. So there was all the excitement around that there was a local actor going to be in this big Star Wars film, and then you just got like so many of the sequences, as you say, are so memorable. And you've got that John Williams score against it, and I think that's, again, one of the things that really makes Star Wars across the whole saga is John Williams' score, and this film just really allowed him to give it his all with the Duel of Fates and with the pod race music, and then you get Across the Stars in episode 2. And yeah, I could go on and on and on, and I would happily do it. But yes, I am really excited to get seeing this film again, the big screen. I'm going to feel like little 7-year-old me, and I hope that the Odeon Cinema is doing the 25th anniversary popcorn bucket, because it's going to get bought. And will I go in my costume? Who knows? Maybe. But yeah, I'm absolutely buzzing to see Phantom Menace again on the big screen. I'm excited to see the pod racing. I'm excited to see the Duel of Fates. I wonder, are they going to give us puppet Yoda or CGI Yoda? That's my biggest question right now.
I feel we could talk about the entire episode about Phantom Menace, even just Star Wars in general, but we can't. We're going to move on. So yes, Phantom Menace, it's back in cinemas to celebrate Star Wars Day and its 25th anniversary. We should say it's also available to watch on Disney Plus, as is this week's Pick of the Streams, Wish.
3, 2, 1.
Asha! I'm here. Whew, just 1 second. Let me catch my breath.
Once upon a time stood Rosas, a most magical kingdom, founded by a king with the power to grant wishes.
You are their handsomest, most beloved king.
You're right. I am a handsome king.
I'm so nervous, I think I'm going to explode.
My best friend, the king's apprentice.
My mouth drooping. I feel like it's drooping.
Asha, come with me. The wishes of Rosas.
Wow.
People give their wishes to me, and I grant the wishes I am sure are good for Rosas.
Some of these will never be granted.
Not some, most.
They deserve more than...
I decide.
What everyone deserves.
So that's a look at Disney's Wish. It's available now on Disney Plus. It was out in cinemas last year. Now we're getting a chance to review it. We didn't talk about it when it was out in the big screen. Maria, I'm going to come to you because as someone who is involved with our podcast, we need to talk about Disney with the lovely Victoria Brown and myself. I'm going to imagine that you were a fan of this film, that this would be something you might enjoy. It was released to celebrate the House of Mouse's centenary. So a lot of fanfare. We've already talked about all the build up with the Phantom Menace. Now we have Disney's Wish, which, as we say, it's there to celebrate 100 years of Disney. What do you think?
I hated it. It was like, I started watching it and I was like, I'm not really sure what's happening. And by about 20 minutes in, I was like, oh, I hate this movie. This is awful. And I didn't expect to react as much. I thought it was like, I'd seen reviews at the time. I didn't actually see it when it first came out.
If I could push, what made you really have such a negative response to this?
I think it's because because they tried to put so much into it, and they were making so many, lovely homages to the 100 Years of Disney, that I was like, I wish you'd just written one plot, and not been like, how can we shoehorn in Peter Pan? How can we shoehorn in 30 references to Snow White and Pinocchio, I suppose, with the person. Yeah, I don't know. There was something about it where I was like, I kind of wanted them to go all in on the evil sorcerer. If you're going to go in it, he felt like he was just a bit vain at times, and then it was like a sudden switch, and I was like, okay, this is a bit more interesting. And then the film was over, and I was like, okay, at least it's over.
That's always a positive.
Yeah,
it's positive. It has ended. The movie has stopped offending me. I wouldn't go so far as to say I hated this, but I remember watching. I went to go see it. I went to see it in the cinema with my lovely wife. She had a lovely nap through it, and I sat there and I thought, it's fine. It's very much caught in this place where it's trying to look back, but it's also so heavily influenced by the likes of Frozen. So you could say it's like, well, we could turn this into a Broadway adaptation. We've all the big numbers, and you've got Ariana DeBose, who I know last week we were talking about. It was just fantastic in West Side Story, Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. You go, there's a perfect bit of casting. Songs are okay. There's nothing kind of like Let It Go or anything like that, or even in Frozen 2, Into the Unknown. There's nothing overly memorable. When we sat down to rewatch it for this TV show, my lovely wife again had a lovely nap. She clearly was not invested. She didn't hate it as much as you. She just found it was the perfect film to send her to sleep. It is disappointing that this is the film that they use to celebrate their centenary. And I will say, and I know Maria, and I guess as well Danny as well, you'll have seen they released this lovely video, Disney, last year, which was all kind of various characters and all them getting back together for just one big photo for in memory of Walt. And that was lovely. That's probably all you needed to do. This was just too sugary sweet. As much as I love Chris Pine, as much as I love Ariana DeBose, there was nothing there that made me go, yeah, I could watch this 10 or 15 more times. I don't know. So Danny, Maria hated it. I was like, the 3-star cinematic meh. Where are you going to weigh in?
I
loved it.
Loved it. I love everything. No, I thought it was all right. I thought it was okay. I'd seen all the reviews and stuff kind of saying like, yeah, this was for the 100th anniversary. This isn't what we wanted. So I didn't go in with overly high expectations for it. And I think that kind of helped in a way, because then whenever I was watching it, I was like, this is okay. This is fine. It's again, yeah, the shoehorned in a reference like every other second. Some of them I appreciated, some of them I didn't. The musical numbers are like, they are bangers, but are they stuff that I'm going to find myself like singing or want to put on in the car? Am I going to put it on like I put the Lion King soundtrack on religiously? No. Do I think this film is going to stand the test of time that the films that it references does? No. It's the wee star thing is like cute. It's a cute little thing. It's there to sell toys. Yeah, it was fine. It's not something, I don't think I'm going to go back and rewatch it. It was all right.
Wow, there you go. I mean, apologies, Mickey. You know, we just were not sold on Wish. And I thought maybe going in second time round, kind of in a similar way to what we talked about with Phantom Menace, taking away all that expectation. As someone who does love Disney, loves what they create, loves their back catalogue, I thought maybe I went in with too high expectations, because you know, you think in your head they're going to do something really special to celebrate, you know, 100 years, and they just created something that just felt like it had been created by AI. It's like it was very artificial. So yes, underwhelming for that, I'm afraid. So we're going to move on. As it's the end of the month, we are concluding our Shakespeare On-Screen season. Last week, the lovely Linda Bryans picked West Side Story, I already mentioned, Ariana DeBose, there when we were talking about Wish. This week, it's over to film historian and Cinepunked Robert J E Simpson with his choice.
All hail, Macbeth! Hail to thee, Thane of Glamis!
What are these? That look not like the inhabitants of the earth, and yet are honest.
Speak if you can, what are you?
Hail!
What is you do?
Hail! Hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor!
For me, there are few classic Hollywood directors as exciting as Orson Welles. The early success he had with his debut feature, Citizen Kane, should have made him a safe studio choice, but instead his constant need to experiment, to take chances, and his tendency to grow bored with projects thrust him firmly into the world of the independents, and with that, he ended up making much more interesting films than the studio system would ever permit. Before coming to the screen, Welles had been a stage actor, famously securing himself a position in Dublin's Gate Theatre, thanks to some probable subterfuge. The theatre was in his blood, and with it the works of Shakespeare were ever present. At the age of just 14, Welles had directed and appeared in a school production of Julius Caesar. Over the course of his career, he directed and starred in numerous Shakespeare adaptations on stage, screen and radio, and picking one to recommend isn't an easy task. Wells himself would no doubt have suggested The Chimes at Midnight, in which he played Falstaff. It's an adaptation of bits of various Shakespeare plays, and it's a film which started its life off as a play first performed here in Belfast's Grand Opera House. But today instead I'm going to suggest you kick off your journey with Wells's adaptation of Macbeth. Now, Wells had first appeared in the play In the Gate in 1931, and in 1936 Wells directed an adaptation with the Federal Theatre Project in New York, often referred to as Voodoo Macbeth, an exciting adaptation featuring a cast made up almost entirely of non-professional black actors. In 1947, Wells staged the play again, this time with the Mercury Theatre, as a dry run for the film adaptation he was now working on. The film itself was independently produced on a shoestring budget, less than $1 million, utilising sets left over from westerns at Republic Studios and costumes that Wells was never entirely happy with. The results, though, are fascinating. It's visually striking, eerie, and with a heavy visual influence of German expressionist filmmaking. The supernatural is foregrounded with the presence of the witches, and unlike some Shakespeare adaptations, the meaning is clearly understood throughout the duration.
Bubble, bubble, boil and trouble, fire burn, and cauldron bubble, pour in cow's blood.
For a film made on such a tiny budget, and in just 23 days, I might add, there is much to admire. Accessibility to Wells's Shakespeare films is tricky today for a number of reasons, but Macbeth is perhaps the easiest, and at the time of recording is available to view on BBC's iPlayer, and it will be there for the foreseeable future. The film itself exists in multiple versions. Originally the film was performed with Scottish accents, but the US distributor didn't really like the sound of that, and so they had them re-record the dialogue for the US marketplace. And it was then released to a slight profit for the US filmmakers. Whichever version you do watch, however, and the BBC version has the one with the Scottish accents, this is a bold, atmospheric film and a great gateway to both Wells and the Bard.
When shall we three meet again? In thunder, lightning, or in rain? When the hurly-burly's done. When the battle's lost and won. That will be at the set of sun. There to meet with Macbeth.
So that's Robert's choice, Orson Welles' Macbeth. Probably of the four that we've had, the most traditional adaptation from everything from 10 Things I Hate About You, Throne of Blood, West Side Story. It's good that we finally just get a straightforward, of sorts anyway, adaptation of Shakespeare's source material. I know Throne of Blood was also adapted from Shakespeare's Macbeth. Before we move on, I should say, Danny, we've just had Robert on. Robert's actually going to be involved with yourself with Fright Club actually in a couple of weeks. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so we are honoured to have Robert introducing our screening of Hammer's Dracula for its 90th anniversary. So that is going to be happening on Friday the 10th of May at the Braid Arts Centre, and you can get your tickets at the Fright Club NI. Our links will be posted on our Twitter and on our Facebook.
Bonafide classic, as we've just seen. Robert has introduced Macbeth, so he'll be introducing Dracula at the Braid. More importantly for us now here this evening in NvTv Studio. Danny, what did you think of this adaptation of Macbeth?
I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed it because I enjoyed how near enough honest and truthful it was to the source material. But I also enjoyed it for the laughs, because people's interpretation of a Scottish accent in it is great. Doing a little rrr at the end of every other word is fantastic. The only person who really commits to a Scottish accent, I would say, is Lady Macbeth. And Orson Welles, like that's the thing, Orson Welles, we all know him for his voice. And Orson Welles has his voice in this, but he's just trying to add like a grrr to it. And that was killing me, that was cracking me up. The other thing I loved about it that was funny, not funny, but definitely funny, was the costumes. They clearly just went in and like raided a costume department, and they were like, right, we've got some stuff, that we've got a bit of tartan, and we've got some like Mongolian war clothing, and we're just going to throw it all together and see what happens. And yeah, like the costume design and the props in this are wild, and it feels like someone's had the most fun making like an all-out theatre production of Macbeth with whatever they've got around them, and then put it in this like carved out stone environment. I was like, I'd never watched it before, so yeah, coming to it and watching like the madness unfold with the Shakespearean dialogue, with all the gurrs and the Scottishing about it, wonderful. I had a wonderful time.
Give us another gur. There we go. That'll keep me going for the rest of this evening. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I have been intending to watch this for quite some time. I reached out to Robert and we kind of discussed possible titles, and knowing Robert, know that he is a fan of Orson Welles, I thought, well, yeah, this would be a great choice and a great opportunity to watch the film. And I was really surprised by it's not long. What is it? Just over an hour and a half. Just clocks in over that. Visually stunning, and I think like so many of Welles's work, visually I think ahead of its time. It feels, 1948, 1940s definitely when this was released. It feels ahead of its time. Yes, they're clearly working with limited budget in terms of what they had available to themselves, but the set, I think, just adds to the ambience, the atmosphere, the use of shadows throughout the film is fab. I have to say, for the interpretation of the witches, this film is having never seen it before, I thought it was fab and creepy and ghoulish. I was really surprised by how much I like this, and we're talking about all our titles. Yes, it's available on various VOD platforms. At the minute, as we record, this is still available, I believe, on the BBC iPlayer. I'm not sure for how long, but if you want to seek it out, you can do. Maria, what about you? I mean, Danny and I have both been pretty positive about this. Are you going to make it 3 for 3?
Yeah, I mean, it's not my favourite version of Macbeth that I've seen. I've watched a lot of different versions because I studied it in school and at uni. And I love the Michael Fassbender and Marion Cotillard version because it's so visually stunning. This one though, like the scenes where they're doing the really famous speeches from it, because the actors are so phenomenal. Like, it doesn't matter about the weird costumes or the setting or the fact they're all doing at the end of everything. It's so well acted, you forget about it all. The rest of it, I was like kind of not here with parts of it. I really liked the setting. Like at first it kind of felt like it was a play and you're watching a play but they're like walking through the set almost. But it's so creepy at points, and that really kind of took me back because like the scene with Banquo, in particular with Banquo's ghost, and like he's reacting to something that isn't there, but you're kind of with the people who are at the banquet because you're like, what is he frightened of? And then there's the finger and it follows it in the shadow. Like there's so many really, like you say, ahead of its time, like creative choices.
I guess we can all agree Orson Welles, not a bad director. I think we can agree on that. I mean, it's not his only Shakespeare adaptation. He's someone who gets that you have to do a little bit more when you're trying to put a play and turn it to the big screen. You have to do just a little bit more than film your actors. So yeah, not a bad way to conclude this Shakespeare on-Screen season. Next month, in the build-up to Docs Ireland, we're going to be showcasing a different documentary next week. So we're looking forward to that and shining a light on documentary filmmaking. So we are pretty much out of time. So all that's left for me to do now is thank my two guests here in the studio. So thank you very much, Maria.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks very much, Danny.
Thank you, Jim.
One last go. So that's all from me. We'll be back next week with another episode. But for now, until then, goodbye.